A few years ago, a message that I posted to this very channel stated a simple idea that I review and you can too. It was almost like a challenge to anybody out there who wanted to express their opinion on an album, that it was something that literally anybody could accomplish. Now, a couple of years later, and the album review community is a lot larger than many people may know or many people may expect. As we've seen from collaboration videos from the likes of myself or Infidel Amsterdam, there are a number of folks out there that are doing this craft. And there are still more that perhaps aren't seeing the success or the view count that they would like. Sometimes it's just based around the discovery process, which does take some time. Other times it's based around style and just poor execution. Now, my intention is not to come off as either pretentious or to state that those who are getting high counts are superior to those who aren't. There are plenty of folks that are delivering top-notch products but not getting large view counts. It's not always indicative of true success. However, this video is meant to kind of give a little tutorial as to how to review an album, how to be an album reviewer. And again, you don't have to follow this letter by letter, but these are just some tips from somebody who's been doing this for 6 years. So, we're going to assume at this stage of the game for this video that you have already acquired and listened to the album. You've listened to it a chosen number of times. That is at your leisure. That is up to you, but just let it be known in advance that the number of times that you listen to something may in fact be indicative to some of the aspects of what we talk about in this video. So, first of all, let's talk about a couple basic things that you need prior to hitting record on your camera. The very first thing that you need, obviously, is information. You need something to do a review about, whether it be an album, a song, a discography, or perhaps just some sort of slice of life. Yes, technically speaking, a reaction video is merely a review of an opinion or of something that is going on in society, so you will need information. And this is where listening to an album multiple times can help out, either that or seeking whatever information about the band or the topic that you need. There are plenty of sources out there that you can use that will help you perhaps formulate your opinion or at least get some basics as to why things got to the point that it did. The second thing that you need is a presence or style. Everybody has their own separate styles. Most people just sit in front of a camera and speak, which is a style all of its own. A bit overused, a bit basic, but I use it too. But presence is definitely important. You have to have a little bit of excitement behind your topic. You can't be a monochrome or a dollard whenever it comes to spewing about anything. If you're looking to hopefully accentuate the idea that an album is terrific and worth a purchase, worth listening to, your voice needs to reflect that. If you want to reflect that perhaps something wasn't all of that great, your voice still has to reflect that and still has to maintain a little bit of liveliness. You also need a reason for doing it. Why are you reviewing this particular album? Is it because it just came out this week? Or is it because it's from one of your favorite bands? Is this a topic that really is close to you and hits close to home? And really, it should answer the question of why you're an album reviewer in the first place. Because you love music, because you enjoy talking about the craft, or perhaps you're a musician yourself and like to analyze other people's work. And finally, and most importantly, aside from all of this, is confidence. You need to be confident in your message. You need to be confident in front of the camera. You cannot look like a deer in headlights whenever you're doing this, else the message will not resonate. Everybody will be more focused on the fact that you seem scared to death. So with that being said, and let's say you have all 4 of those things, bravo, good job, wonderful. Let's move on to the 3 parts of a review. That's right, there's actually a bit of a methodology behind this that is really done almost without even realizing it. And really, those that have success tend to have a lot of this down, and it was something that they didn't even plan. It just made sense. The first part is the introduction, which is where you get your, what's your reason for doing this? Your basic information, the who's, the what's, and the where's. Who is it that you're talking about, or what is it that you're talking about? What from these people are you talking about? Where can this be acquired, or, when is it going to happen, whatever it is. This is where the basic information, the basic premise is set, and you can do this in any number of ways. You don't simply need to say, I'm here to review blah blah blah. It is a style, but it's not necessary that each have to begin that way. You can do so with a bit of an anecdote, either that or you could do so with a clever little skit. If you take a look at some videos from a gentleman like Infidel Amsterdam, who likes to throw Baldric into a skit prior to either reviewing music or doing whatever, you see that he has a little bit of a secondary objective there. He likes to blend a little bit of humor, a little bit of slice of life, along with talking about music in order to give it sort of that more real feel. And really, it gives you the opportunity to see that somebody that is in front of a camera talking about music also likes to do other things as well. The second thing that you need is the information/analysis. This is the whys and the hows, and this is where one of the largest pitfalls of album reviewers come into play. This is where you analyze the album, whether you do so as a whole, either that, or you go into individual tracks. The key questions that need to be asked whenever you have an opinion on something, though, is the why and the how. There have been some reviews out there that have simply addressed the fact that the reviewer themselves enjoys the album, or enjoys a song, likes the track, and then moves on to the next track, and basically mimics the same idea. It doesn't give any actual information. It just boasts your opinion that you think Song 5 and Song 6 are both good. What you really need to do is tell the individuals out there, tell your viewers why it's good or how it's good. What is it that actually sparked that opinion inside of your soul and inside of your brain? Why are you telling them that the song or the album is good? This is where the argumentative side comes into place. A good way in order to analyze an album in this regard is to look both ways. Look on both sides. Is there something that is negative that is spewing in there? Even if it is something small, something minute, something trivial that can honestly just be placed in there to maybe seem a bit contrarian, either that or to play devil's advocate on yourself. That's the reason why I oftentimes look at things such as the track selection process, where, you know, how the album is built, either that or track time. If there's nothing really within the track itself or the song itself that really seems all of that negative, those are other things that can be looked at in order to perhaps see where something could have been improved, or where something just doesn't seem to make that much sense. Or, on the other side, where something was done exemplary well. Finally, you have in conclusion, and this is the how much for so many individuals and for so many reviewers, because this is where you offer the score. You also have to defend that score a little bit, and you might think to yourself, I just did that with the information/analysis point, but in reality, you still have to defend why you chose that number. You can give an album a strong review and not say much in the way of negativity, but still feel that it's just an average album. It's just, you know, it boils down a little bit to a very subjective opinion. There's nothing really objective about it. But it also comes down to the fact that if something doesn't floor you absolutely, but still feels competent, you can still give an album that you barely talked any negativity about, you know, a 4 out of 5 or a 70 out of 100, whatever it may be, and it still not be an insult. It could be taken as an insult by some, but you have to learn to ignore some of the comments and the haters, and you're going to have that. Believe me, it's going to occur. So you have to defend what you say a little bit more after that, and then you go into your finale, where you, of course, pimp whatever it is that you want, or do whatever it is that you want, and bid your viewer adieu. So there you have it, 3 main parts of a review. But what are some pitfalls? We spoke about one pitfall in the information and analysis portion, where it seems like, you know, if there's you know, if you oversimplify something, that it's only going to work against you, and that's really true. If you're basic on your analysis and very basic on your arguments, it is going to show forth, and it's going to make you come off as somebody who's not really able to analytically deliver any sort of information about a disc. Whether it be something as basic as how a section of a song took you, or how a certain, you know, 3 or 4 song movement affected you whenever you were going through your playback process. You need to be able to represent it in more than just, that was really, really good, moving on. It's something where you need to offer a little bit more to your viewer. Also, you need to know this information, or else really don't present it. Now, there are some styles where there can be faux pas and errors that occur, and there's been some generalized debate on some, you know, non-objective, non-subjective, just purely based off of metaphor or popular opinion that can still be debated, but there's a lot of information out there that if you want to present it in your review, you probably should know it. If you one take, or if you just make a misstep while you're speaking during a take and you forget that you did it, or you thought that you were in the right, it's understandable that that happens. But remember, people are looking at your video with a certain air of slight professionalism, even though it's not really, the same type of professionalism that perhaps a Rolling Stone reader would offer a Rolling Stone album review writer, which is kind of a shame, but considering that's a job that is paid for one and is seen as really, kind of exclusive, even though it's not, album reviewing here on YouTube is done and can be done by just about anybody. So that whole air of celebrity is one that's purely manifested by its users. Secondly, don't try to force humor if you don't really have the chops. And what I mean by this is that reviews do need to be entertaining. They have to have a certain air about them in order for people to want to come back. They're going to want you to be an interesting individual with your presentation. However, if you attempt to force humor just to perhaps be like somebody else, either that, or if you try to force humor just to try to secure those views and try to secure that entertainment value, there's a better chance that it's going to come off as extremely forced and have the opposite effect. It's going to turn people off. And then finally, and one of the bigger, perhaps controversial topics, is that visual aids don't trump good information. You might notice that on the channel here, we didn't have a lot of visual aids, and then suddenly, over the course of the past few months, there's been a bit of an increase of that. There's been a little more editing that has happened, though it's been still, for the most part, relatively basic. Visual aids are nice. They can help drive a point home. At times, if you have that humorous chop, you can use some visual aids in order to add a little bit of a visual humor aspect to it alongside of it. Perhaps you can use that also to give your viewers a look at the album cover, or to give them a look at the band, whatever it may be that you're talking about. It can help. However, if you don't have good information to back it up, if you're solely going off of the visual idea as the reason why people are going to come in, you're wrong. People aren't easily fooled. And instead, this is something where they will view once, and if they notice that this is a problem, there's a good chance that you will not get that secondary view. Remember, there is a wealth out there on YouTube today. The impression that you make with your first video can be the difference between gaining a subscriber and gaining somebody that will not touch your name again. So these are just some basics about the reviewing process. We haven't even touched into concepts such as editing, considering prior to a couple of months ago, editing was not something I did very much of. It's something that's still a new process to me, something that I don't still subscribe to 100%. However, in this modern age, it seems that a little bit of it does need to be done to enhance the overall content. It's sort of one of those bitter pills that you have to swallow whenever you were an OG, where all that stuff really didn't seem all that necessary. However, there's so much more that you could talk about, and there are many people that are out there that are willing to offer their advice. One of the biggest pieces of advice that I can give is to just review even whenever the camera isn't rolling. If you're in the car by yourself and you're listening to a piece of music, go ahead and review it on your own. Do it by yourself while you're in the vehicle. And it also helps to do this in front of mirrors. It helps to do this when reviewing things that aren't music. It helps just to gain a little bit more vocabulary. The vernacular gets a bit stronger whenever you repeat the process over and over again. Don't be afraid to take a couple of risks and try a couple things that are different. And most importantly, do your best to think outside the box a little bit. The box is not necessarily always where you want to be. You don't have to use structure in order to be entertaining. You don't have to use structure in order to have an accurate review that's going to gain tens of thousands of views. The information is really one of the most keynote and paramount activities and paramount things that you require in order to keep people really engrossed in your content. With that being said, if there are any questions that you have further about this topic, ask them in the comments below, and I will see which ones that I perhaps can answer, and I'm sure that there will be others that I may not be able to, considering the things that I do here on YouTube. Until then, my name is coverkillernation, and I hope that this video didn't come off, as I stated in the introduction, as too pretentious. Either that or me saying that there are many people out there that are much better than you, and that's just the way it is. Because that's not the intention. The intention is for encouragement, and the intention is also to perhaps help those along that don't really know where to start or how to maybe break out of the slump that they're in. Either that or what they could do to make their videos more entertaining or something that more people would want to check out. So, I'm coverkillernation, and I will talk to each and every one of you next time. I am out.